Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again here at the Voice of College Football on the Texas channel. We really appreciate you guys being here. Again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're trying to do. We really appreciate you guys being here and joining the show. Today, we are going to talk about where we believe Texas will have to get better to win a national championship. So let's jump right into that. What moves does Texas, or where does Texas need to improve to win a Natty? Gerald, I'll let you start out. Where do you think we need to improve? Where the major focuses need to be in this spring?
Yeah, I think the biggest areas for me, one is probably tight end. I think Texas doesn't have a clear answer there, and that's such a key part of what Sark likes to do offensively, is have a tight end that can catch the ball, that can get out there, create mismatches, and do that. And just Texas, you had Gunnar Helm, who was a key piece of the offense this year, one of the top receivers, kind of an outlet for Quinn Ewers on a lot of spots. So I think that's something that I'm keeping an eye on for sure, is that tight end position. And then honestly, along that same line, the interior of the offensive line, I think, is another spot where Texas really does need to get better. Devon Campbell, love him. Devon Campbell, love him. Great prospect. But there were times where he was just not very good. He got pulled in multiple spots this last year. Who's going to be on the other side of him? Who knows, right? They're still trying to figure that out, I think, a little bit based on where the center play goes and all that. But the interior offensive line is going to have a lot to say, I think, about the success of the running game. And the success of the running game has a lot to say about how the success of the offense, especially when you've got a young quarterback. You've got Arch Manning going to be in his first year as a starter, stepping into hostile confines week one. The best friend of a young quarterback starting is a solid offensive line and a solid ground game. And so I think those two things specifically for Texas to get to its goals next year, which honestly the road to those goals start week one in Ohio, right? Tight end, interior offensive line are the two biggest glaring things to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas realized that, and they tried to go out and get, I thought was the best guy in the portal tight end the position, Max Clare from Purdue. Unfortunately, we'll be playing him week one because he did go to Ohio State. He's a really good player, so it sucks to see him go there. I would agree with that. I think Devon Campbell has yet to live up to the potential that, I mean, again, I think he's the highest rated offensive line recruit in like the past decade, which is crazy.
Like that,
he hasn't lived up to those expectations. Like he's been good. If he would have went to the NFL this year, he probably would have been like a 4th or 5th round draft pick. But to me, when you're at that position, you have to be a 1st round draft pick. So it's going to be very interesting if he can get there. And it's funny, you went personnel wise, I went more statistics. So running game wise, I looked at like the last 10, but they correlate. And like you talked about the interior of the offensive line, that correlates to the running game. So our running game, I looked up yards per attempt of the last 10 national championships and where they ranked. Ohio State was 25th. Michigan was 42nd. UGA was 3rd, then 19th. Bama was 29th. Then LSU was 21st. Clemson was 2nd. Bama was 10th. Clemson, this is the worst one, guys, 76th. That tells you how good Deshaun Watson was, because I'll bring out some red zone statistics too, because that's something we need to concentrate. And then Bama, 47th in the country. So you're basically top 50. Last year, guys, Texas was 64th. They have to get better in the run game department. I talked about that. I made a video about that. I think at the time of the video, halfway through the season, I was talking 4.3 yards per carry. And I said, if this stays, this is not good enough to win a national championship. I believe it stayed about there or even went down a slight tick. So that has to get better going forward. I will say this, though. It seems to be an outlier because in 23, we were 18th in the country in yards per carry. 22, we were 16th. And 21, we're 11th. If we're in the top 20, we're good, guys. So I really do think that can correlate to CJ Baxter getting hurt. I think if he's healthy, Texas will be better running the football. I'm cautiously optimistic when saying that. Also, same thing with Arch. I think Arch will help us in the running game as well. So we'll have to see. But that I completely agree. Like when we look at statistics and then we look at personnel, they correlate, and they got to get better on the interior, and they got to get better in the numbers when they do get better, hopefully on the interior.
And I think that running game also correlates to the other area that statistically jumps out to me is red zone scoring, red zone touchdowns specifically, right? Texas was unable to push the ball over the line, right? And that, like, we can draw a straight line from Texas's inability to get 3 yards to the loss in the college football playoff, right? If Texas doesn't have to go to that weird rollout situation, doesn't have to do the toss, Quinn Ewers isn't back there rolling back and get strip sacked, right? That, to me, there's a direct line, one-to-one relationship between Texas not being able to run the ball and Texas's red zone woes, right? The best teams in the world, you think about the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, right? Now the tush push is a controversial thing, right? Whatever, right? But they can run the ball. They can get the 1 yard when they need it. They have a go-to play. They have a go-to package. They have a go-to set. Texas doesn't have that. When they need 1 yard, they can't get it. That should be your running back. That should be a Jarrett Gibson. That should be you have your defensive tackles in there at wing back and at fullback, and you just push the line 1 yard. So I'm with you there. I think that running game, the inability to get 1 yard when you need it, running game, red zone scoring, I think we're in one accord there, Matthew.
No, I completely agree. So let's talk about the red zone scoring. Ohio State, 32nd in the country last year. Michigan, 29th. UGA, first. And that's funny because if you look at the running game, the same year, UGA was third, what we just talked about. So if you have a really strong running game, you're going to be very good in the red zone. All these things correlate pretty well. Again, the worst red zone offense in this list was Clemson in 2016, and they had a bad running game. So all these things correlate. If you go down the list, they're all very similar in red zone scoring and running game production, which makes complete sense because guys down in the red zone, spaces are tight. It's very hard to execute passing games down in the red zone, especially what Sark likes to run. Sark usually likes to run like longer developing routes and RPO style of offense. That does not work at all in the red zone. And I completely agree with you. When I watch the Philadelphia Eagles and I watch the Buffalo Bills, if they do not have a package like they do for those guys with Arch Manning, I will be highly, highly disappointed. Because as I said a couple weeks ago, I think Arch Manning is the comp for me is a young Josh Allen. I'm not saying he's this Josh Allen, which just got a record-breaking contract in the NFL. I'm saying young Josh Allen. And young Josh Allen was he improvised very well, and he was able to run the football very well. I'm hoping we can get that with Arch, and I'm hoping that will solve a lot of these issues that we do have.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think having a quarterback that's a zone read threat in the red zone is a big deal, right? Texas made a mint with both Colt McCoy and Vince Young at the national champion level teams because they could run the zone read because the quarterback was a number in the defensive alignment for the run game, especially in the red zone. Like there's nothing better than a quarterback reading the end on the goal line and being able to pull it or push it and get across the line. So now I'm with you there. I think there's Arch should add to that. And again, but Sark still is not. He's not a quarterback run kind of guy. That's not his MO. That's not his preferred way to use his quarterbacks because the quarterback is so integral to it, and that's a way to open the quarterback up to unnecessary hits. So I don't think Arch is going to be like a battering ram down there like you see Cam Newton, that national championship team, right? You're not going to see that, but I think you will see some options for Arch, some additional things, maybe even like a jump pass. I want the Tebow jump pass in there, threaten with the legs, dump it over the top. I'd love to see it. I'm with you there.
No, yeah, I think you just have to have that threat. Like, I don't expect Arch to have like 15 rushing touchdowns or something crazy like that, but can he give me 5? I think 5 is enough to keep people honest. And I think that's something we need to incorporate in the offense because, again, red zone under Sark has gotten worse every year. It's gone from 6th in 2021, 13th in 2022. 2023, we were 89th, and then last year we were 111th in the country. And like I said, the worst red zone scoring team that has won a national championship in the past 10 years is Clemson in 2016. And we know how good Deshaun Watson was. So if you're going to be, I guess if Arch Manning is going to be Deshaun Watson, we can do that, but that's a lot to ask for as a quarterback. I'd rather not ask that of him.
You mean you don't want to be one of the best college football quarterbacks in the last 15 years?
Yeah. I was going to say,
I'd love to see it, right? But I don't think it's going to happen. And you called that red zone stat out. Who graduated between those 2 years where Texas went from 13th to 18th? Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson covered a lot of sins. Like I think it's been an issue for a lot longer than we know, but you had 2 guys that could get it done solo dolo there. So I think there's probably a tale that you can tell there.
Yeah, 100%. We went from having 2 really, or 1 like legendary type running back who's really good in the NFL, arguably the best running back in the NFL. I think he's top 3. And then you had a guy that was like a 4th or 5th round pick, or a 3rd or 4th round pick in Roschon Johnson. And then Jonathan Brooks, I think, did a pretty good job, but then he got hurt. So I think that I should dive into that of what was the difference with Jonathan Brooks and without Jonathan Brooks. I bet we were probably in the 50s or 60s with him. We still weren't great. And then it fell off a cliff once he got hurt. And then last year, no offense, we really just didn't have a guy. Like,
no.
Caden Blue's probably going to be like a 6th round pick. Trey Weisner, when he does go to the NFL, will probably be the same, about a 6th, 7th round pick. CJ Baxter brings us to that next upside where I think he could be somewhere in between Jonathan Brooks or Bijan Robinson. I don't think he's as good as Bijan, but I think he can be as good as Jonathan Brooks was.
For sure. And again, that is Jonathan Brooks was a guy who would have won the Doak Walker if he hadn't gotten hurt, right? It's like that's a pretty solid level to aspire to.
No, 100%. So we both agree. I think running game, red zone, 2 biggest things. I don't think there's anything in the top 2 that approaches that. What is there anything else you can think of that could hold this team back?
Special teams is something else that just always is in the back of my mind, right? And not in like, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't need you to win all the special teams awards. I don't need you to return a bunch of kicks and block a bunch of punts. I just need you not to suck. Like, don't be a liability on the field. I don't want to have to worry about a field goal. I don't have to worry about a punt or a punt coverage team. Like, I want to be able to just say, okay, we're off the field, whatever. Every drive ends in a kick that's successful, and I'm fine with it.
No, 100%. You can't be disastrous with special teams. Last year was bordering on that. I wouldn't go all the way that far, but it was pretty close. Like I said, a couple Silas Bolden miscues and maybe another bad punt or two, and we could have been talking about like one of the worst special teams units in the country.
Go look at the S&P Plus numbers. Go look at it. Like, it is floated by a couple of big plays from Silas Bolden. It is not good.
100%. We definitely got to get better there. Something as a network, I don't think we have to get better with. Well, we could use a few helping points, I guess. You can get we need sponsors on the channel. We have the Win Agency up on the screen right there. They've done a great job with the Michigan channel as a partner. They've liked being a sponsor with the Michigan channel. So if you know anyone that would like to sponsor the show, get their business product or service to the next level, please check out the Voice of College Football at sponsorships@bocfb.com today. Like it says on the screen, Lisa has really loved the partnership with the Voice of College Football, so we really appreciate that. Also, guys, you can check us out on your favorite audio platform, whether that be Spotify, Apple, wherever. I dropped the link in the comment section. You can check us out there. It really helps us out. And we launched a new Instagram channel here at the Voice of College Football. We would really, really appreciate if you guys check that out. It is really exciting if you can get on the ground floor of that, get us up to a couple thousand subscribers. I know on the Twitter one, we're up to, I think, 7,000 now. So that really helps us out, guys. We really appreciate that. Thank you guys for checking that out and subscribing over there. Being on the ground floor would really be awesome. You get to interact more as well. We get to know you more on a personal level. So we really appreciate that. And again, guys, same here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out and what we're trying to build. This is the 43rd edition of the Texas Longhorns live channel. Like I said, once we get to 3,500 subscribers, I promised we will do a call-in show, which we will do. So get us there. I think we're about 485 away. So honestly, the way we're going, I think we could hit that by the beginning of the season, which would be really awesome. Take some phone calls during the season. So we really appreciate that. So we kind of talked about what could hold Texas back of winning a Natty or what could propel them forward to win a Natty. And we are about to enter the spring portal window very soon here. So let's talk about that. What are some needs you see on this roster, Gerald, that Texas can get to?
Yeah, I don't feel like there's like a ton of glaring needs. Like it's not something where it's like, oh, this is a sieve and it's not going to go well. And I think you saw the areas that the coaches really prioritized in the fall window, right? They took multiple defensive tackles, they took one linebacker, and they went after a tight end. And I really think like a tight end is probably still a need in the portal, and I mentioned that in the previous conversation about what Texas needs to improve on. But I think a tight end is probably something I would love to see Texas go after. I also think when I think about the portal, I think you're either trying to raise the ceiling or raise the floor. And I think the ceiling for most of these groups is pretty high, but I'm curious about the floor for the wide receiver room and the defensive back room. Like, what is the floor for both of those rooms? Because I think you have an opportunity to bring a guy who's experienced in for the wide receiver room, right? That can float that average a bit, that can help you out and keep, again, like a Silas Bolden type. You don't need a top end guy. You don't need an Isaiah Bond. You don't need a Matthew Golden. You just need somebody to, if injuries happen, right, you can raise the floor of that room while injuries start to sort themselves out. Same thing goes for the defensive back room. I'm curious, especially at corner, Who do they have? Like, what is the floor there? The ceiling there, extremely high, right? Jalen Gilbo, Malik Muhammad, right? That group is a very high ceiling group. But what happens when somebody gets banged up, right? Who is the second man in the rotation? What's the third unit going to look like? Because Texas anticipates and hopefully will play another long football season, right? And the longer the season, the higher the likelihood of somebody getting hurt, right? There's a car crash on every stinking play. So what's the floor for the cornerback room? What's the floor for the wide receiver room? I think those two specifically, for me, if somebody gets injured, what's that look like? So I think bringing in an experienced cat, somebody who, maybe isn't going to be a featured guy at their offense, and they try to go to Texas for a year or two, maybe get an MBA from McCombs or something and get it paid for, whatever that might be. Somebody who's not going to come in and require a lot of look, but is somebody who's willing to come in and be a key piece of not only the wide receiver room, but like the culture. Somebody who can come in and be a culture captain for you. I think it's a big added piece there as well.
Yeah, when we talk about that, to me, that just screams Silas Bolden. That's what he was for Texas. Like that Oklahoma play, he's going to be remembered for a very long time. That's a culture type play. He raised the floor of the wide receiver room. And I agree. Apparently on Inside Texas, they did say that there is a wide receiver that's going to come to Texas. They have not released a name, but he's going to come. The wide receiver room has already been made aware of. So that's always interesting to me that some guy is on another campus right now, just waiting to a month. It's like, you know what? After this, I'm out of here. I already know I'm out of here. He's probably going to participate in whatever team that is, spring practice for a little bit, and then he's just going to be gone. So that's interesting. And apparently the wide receivers are fine with it. I'm very, very interested to see where he comes from when that's released, because that'll probably be released first, and then eventually who it is. Once we can probably figure it out when the team's announced. Honestly, just look next to them. If they got Texas next to their name, where they came from, that's probably where that person is going to go back to. And yeah, like you said, there's not much proven there. We have DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo, and he's barely proven, and that is it. Then you have freshmen. You have a couple other guys that have made plays but haven't made enough plays. I think it's pretty interesting. A couple of the notes that have come out of practice are Ryan Niblett switched to nickelback. So that's very interesting to me. And then Jalen Gilbo apparently is moving more outside. And we talked about that, and I floated that out there that I could definitely see that, because then you have a little bit more outside depth and you experiment a little bit more with the nickel, because I think that's probably a slightly easier position to play for some of the guys on the roster, because we have more athletic guys that can move sideline to sideline a little bit better, which you need more as a nickelback. But I agree with you. I think wide receiver is definitely one of them. Tight end is definitely another one. Like, talk about unproven. We have no one in that room that I'm like, you know what? I've seen him play. He's good. I haven't seen Jordan Washington play. I haven't seen Spencer Shannon play. I haven't seen Nick Townsend play. So Emery Winston, I haven't seen him play. They're all good players, like from what I've seen from the high school tape, but I haven't seen them play at Texas. I think Nick Townsend's going to be a very special football player, but it's really hard for me to believe in a Steve Sarkisian offense he's going to come in right away. And he wasn't even an early enrollee. He was like one of two guys that wasn't an early enrollee.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to expect with this team there. I think that would be good to fill someone in there. They don't even have to be great. Can they come in, give us 300 to 400 yards receiving, be a good blocker? I'd be perfectly fine like that. Honestly, if you gave me Juan Davis again for another year, I would take that.
Yeah.
And then defensive line. Again, it's the same thing. Talent there, but not proven talent. Travis Shaw has been okay. He was at North Carolina, though. Cole Brevard's been pretty good. He was at Purdue, though. Alex January, I was impressed with, but again, it was only like 2 games I saw him in, so I don't know what to expect there. And then everything else behind them are either freshmen or guys who have not played. Melvin Hills is the only one that's not a freshman. He hasn't really played, so that's going to be very interesting. Is there another room on this roster that you're concerned about, or did I already hit on it?
Yeah, I think those are the ones. I think, and Texas has already gone after. I mean, I don't know if they'll add any more interior defensive linemen. They're set at edge, like linebacker. You may add a depth piece at linebacker. They've already added one, that kid from Arkansas, who I think is going to be pretty decent, actually. So like, this is a staff that's really aggressive when they see something that they like in the portal, but they're also good with their guys when it's time for when they don't really feel like there's an upgrade out there. They're good with their guys, and so I think we can tell by the way that they targeted in the fall window that defensive tackle, tight end, and linebacker are the positions that they're probably going to be looking at.
No, I agree. Another thing that was floated out there, and we've talked about a little bit about special teams already, kicker. Do they feel comfortable with Will Stone?
Yes.
Obviously, Sark felt comfortable enough to put him in a college football playoff game to determine who goes to the national championship. He put him out there. He didn't take any field goal attempts in that game, I believe, though. So I don't think so. I think he only took 2 extra point attempts. So who knows what would happen at that point? But didn't trust Bert Auburn at the end either. Can Bert Auburn regain that trust? That's going to be very interesting because he was really good the year before. I think he was like the all Big 12 kicker at one point the year before. So can he regain that form? Can he regain that trust? And again, like Gerald said, can you just be like average? I don't need you to be great, but 60 something percent isn't good enough. Can you give me 77, 78%? I would take that at this point, especially since I do think we are going to be better in the red zone. I don't really see us getting a kicker at this point. I'm going to be honest. I think that ship has kind of sailed. I think you would have gotten him in the same portal window as you got Jack Baumeister to punt for us. So It is what it is at this point. It's either going to be Will Stone or Bert Auburn.
And I think we're going to have to be okay with that, right? Bert, like you said, Bert Auburn was good a couple of years ago, and Sark trusted Will Stone enough to trot him out there in the college football semifinal. So I think there's fans are just going to have to put on their big boy pants for this one, and it may be annoying at times. I think you may see Texas go for it on a few more 4th downs potentially in the fall, but again, that's part of trying to figure out what works. And in a lot of ways, I think Sark is probably a field goals or failures kind of guy. So I would be having an opportunity to go for more 4th downs, maybe not a bad thing overall.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I feel like I said, we've talked about it a little bit already. I think the offense is going to be better at running the ball, hopefully. Yep. And if that's the case, then yeah, it's fine to go for it on 4th down a little bit more often. If you have a reliable play or a couple plays you can go to, a la the Philadelphia Eagles with the tush push. It's basically, if it's 4th and 1.5, 4th and 2, you're going for it because it's good 90% of the time. If you have something like that, you're definitely going to go for it. Instead of opting to kick the field goal. So I completely agree with that. And I think we're on the same page with about everything. I'm very interested to see that wide receiver is. I have no clue.
Yeah.
Maybe when I have some free time, I'll just dive in and look at Texas kids who haven't gotten much playing time at decent football programs, like top 30, top 35-esque football programs. And that's probably who it's going to end up being. It's going to be very interesting. Obviously, On Texas knows who it is. They're just not releasing it right now, which makes sense. You can't release it when again, this guy is on another team preparing to play spring football with this team. So it's going to be very interesting.
We'll find out in, I guess, a month or so.
Yeah. Next up, Texas focuses on defensive linemen. The focus has been narrowed by Kenny Baker and the staff of guys they want. So I'll list off these guys. Most of them are visiting this summer, and if they're not visiting, they're going to try to get them on campus. So we got Jermaine Winfield from Texas, Damari Simeon from New Jersey. So we talked about that, Gerald. I want him to hit up that DMV type area. Well, guess what? They have 2 guys on here from that, so that's exciting. James Johnson is from Florida. Kendall Gerville is from Florida. Valdon Stone, here we go, from Virginia. Tico Crindon from Georgia. Bodney Cleveland from Alabama. Dylan Berryman, who is a stud from Louisiana. Richard Anderson, who's committed to LSU as of this moment, also from Louisiana. Bryce Perry Wright, who we've talked about a little bit already, from Georgia. And Elijah Golden from Florida. So a lot of Florida, Georgia guys on here, which is very exciting. Like we said, we're finally getting into these places, establishing our hooks in them, and then taking some of their players. Who are some of your I guess, favorites on this list?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Stone and Cleveland are like the 2 big shiny ones, right? Top 50 guys. But I watched Jamion Winfield's tape, and that guy like jumps. Go look at his junior highlights on Huddle. That dude is a freak. Like quick first step, explosive. He can play. He's played inside. He's played outside. He's played like a 3 technique, a 5 technique, and an outside linebacker. Pretty wild for a guy who's like pushing 300 pounds. Absolutely moves way faster than somebody who's pushing, like I think 285, 290 is what they have him listed at, which is absolutely silly. But he's a guy who, like when you watch film and you just see like that's the D1 guy, he jumps off the tape at you. There's another one that wasn't on your list that I want Texas fans to like just think about. Tiki Hola from Bastrop. He is an undersized kid, 6'2", 285. I love the way that kid uses his hands. Like, he has active hands. He blocked 3 freaking kicks last year. Like, insane for a guy who's 6'2", playing defensive tackle to block kicks. So, like, that's another guy that I like. He's not high on the Texas board, but I think he's going to go somewhere and be a dude. He's right around the corner from Texas. Maybe he's a late cycle offer for them if they need to add a body in that room. But Winfield is a guy, obviously, probably my favorite of the group. Just watching him, he's an absolute monster. And with a kid like that in the state of Texas has to land him.
No, I agree. I think a lot of these Texas kids, you'd like to get at least 1 or 2 of them to, establish your recruiting base a little bit better. I don't think Texas hasn't been bad at that under Sark, but it isn't as good as I don't think us Texas fans would like it to be at sometimes. Manuel Ruffin is someone else I forgot on this list. I have him here. 6'5", 290 pounds from Alabama. The guy that sticks out to me is Bryce Perry Wright. He's 6'2", 250 pounds. And you look at that, it's like, damn, that guy is pretty small for a defensive lineman. But it's the body type that they want. It's a long, lengthy guy that's explosive, period. That's what they want. And then they figure out the weight as it goes. Like, we saw that. We've seen that with guys on campus. If they needed to put on 20 pounds, they put on 20 pounds. Like Cameron Williams, we saw him 370 steps on campus. At the NFL Combine, he's 317. So if they need the weight to come off, they'll take it off. If they need it to come on, they'll put it on. But if they like the frame, they like the explosiveness, they like the versatility, that's what they recruit to, especially on the defensive and offensive lines. And I think that guy fits the bill. Again, I love when we take guys from Georgia because, again, you're establishing a recruiting base in Georgia, and you don't have to line up against them. Because, listen, guys, I'm here to tell you, with Kirby Smart on the sidelines and Steve Sarkisian on the sidelines, I think we're going to see a lot of Georgia, Texas, SEC championship games or big-time football games between those two. So if we can take someone from that state and bring them to Texas and have them develop, that is a very big positive thing. And I think that's also why we need to make Justice Terry hit in a big way as well.
Yeah. It's good that you mentioned him because I almost anticipate this being like a smaller group at defensive tackle just because they have Terry, Charles, and Sharma from last year's class. Like 2025 was a loaded year and Texas did really well. So I don't anticipate Texas taking another 3 guys like they did last year. It's probably going to be a 1 to 2, like a smaller class of that interior defensive line.
No, that's a good point. I agree. I think it'll be the opposite. I think offensive line will have a big class. Defensive line will probably have a smaller class. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. He said, Bebo's bodyguard, we appreciate you being here. When have we ever got a player from Barstrop or Batstrop?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I like the kid. That's all. If Texas doesn't want him, that's great. I just like the way his hands work. He's an active player. I like active defensive linemen. And again, 6'2" blocking kicks, silly.
No, that's true. And that's the thing too. It's hard to tell because I agree there are certain high school pipelines that don't really pan out that well, but like has the coaching staff change, has their strength and conditioning program change, all that stuff matters as well. So it's going to be very interesting. That's a good point you bring up, but we'll have to see. And this guy, I watched tape. I think he's an okay player, but I'm big on getting your hooks into certain areas in certain states. Stone. It would be a massive win for Texas to go up to Virginia and get someone that highly recruited and wanted by a lot of different teams. That's very hard for us to do. Like I said, I don't know the last time Texas went up there and got like a really good football player, even a good football player. It's kind of like Travis Shaw coming over from North Carolina. We really haven't gotten into North Carolina football. We haven't really gotten to Virginia football. We haven't really gotten to New Jersey football, and they recruit a lot of good football players. So if we can get someone like Valen Stone, who's a good football player, that would help out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Stone, obviously, everybody likes Stone. I think he's a top 50 kid on 247 or the composite. I'm not sure which one. But obviously, getting the more hooks you can get in the more regions, get your face out there, get your brand out there. Recruiting is national, regardless of what school you are and what region you are. So part of the issue, or not issue, but like part of the thing we have to like reconcile with is like, Mac Brown would not really ever leave the state of Texas unless it was like a super special kid, like a Ricky Williams, right? Or something like that. But that's not necessarily how recruiting is nowadays. It's national. You've got multiple services. You've got Huddle. You've got On3, 247. You've got Inside to all of these national recruiting services. So there's, but getting your hooks into more regions, getting the name, getting your name recognition, coaches anticipating you being there, high schools anticipating you being there. If it's just 1 or 2 kids, it's a win.
Yeah, 100%. And again, if they hit and they do well and they like it there, then that continues to grow the brand and you're able to get guys there easier. And I think it's, Austin's kind of a perfect spot now. You have a couple good airports down in Texas that are close to Austin. And then also you're in the middle of the country. You can fly anywhere you want. Really, I think there's direct flights almost anywhere in the country to Austin. So I think that's a pitch as well. And I would love to get someone like that. Another guy that I really like, and I just love the size, 6'5", 310 pounds, Kendall Gerville. I think he's a really good football player. This is a guy that'd be really nice to get. You can probably put on another 30 pounds and he can just plug up the middle, play a little bit of nasty football, a lot like Bill Norton, which I know people were freaking out because he had that little announcement on Twitter and everyone's like, oh my gosh, he's come back for 1 year, but he didn't have any eligibility. I would have loved it back because he flowered at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he's my perfect defensive tackle. Like, I don't need a bunch of stats from you. Just sit your big behind down in the middle and the linebacker shine. That's all I need from you. You're my ideal.
Bevo's bodyguard also said, get Ojo and Turntine and I'm happy. If we can get that for the offensive line, we talked about that. Turntine is a must get. If you don't get Turntine, that's a big L. But that's the thing too, Sark, when he is recruiting, there's always that one or two guys in a class that you say you have to get this guy. And he's hit on almost all of them other than Decoria Moore. I think that's really the only one of like, we have to get this guy. We'll go all out on this guy. We have to get him. And that's the only one I can think of we didn't get. We got everyone else that we've really wanted.
Yeah, and Decoria Moore was such a weird recruitment. It looked like he was looking for any reason not to go to Texas. So it's just one of those, like, if he doesn't want to go, he doesn't want to go, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, he was looking for reasons not to commit to Texas from the outside. I don't have any inside sources. I'm not a source guy when it comes to him, but like from the outside, from the way that recruitment shook up, it looked like he was looking for any reason not to go to Texas. So like, I chalk that one up, just charge it to the game and keep it moving.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's everyone's saying he's gonna, like, when he comes, he's gonna commit, never committed, and then went to Oregon a week later. But yeah, this defensive line class can be special. Most of these guys will be on campus. We'll see if we can get a couple of these other guys on campus. We'll see if we can flip Richard Anderson from Louisiana from LSU to Texas. I think that job becomes much easier if LSU has a bad year or not a great year even. Like if they go 9-3, there's a good chance Brian Kelly gets fired.
And Bo Davis is already out the door. So, like, you've got that in right there. Like, Bo Davis being gone at LSU, very happy about that.
Yeah, 100%. It kind of worked out for Texas. I think we got a really good defensive line coach, and who knows if he would have been there, he could be like a defensive line coach in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
that's how that works. And then Bo Davis is off to LSU for 1 year, and then he leaves to the NFL. So it kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah, I think Texas made out really well with that exchange.
Thank you guys for being here again. Hit that like button, subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel. Also, guys, check out a word from one of our sponsors on the channel. If you need your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the Voice of College Football, let's discuss how you can reach your target market. Email us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. We really appreciate you guys doing that. You don't have to sponsor our channel, but if you want to sponsor any channel on the Voice of College Football Network or anyone wants to do that, please reach out there. Also, check out our Instagram, which is new. We are trying to build it. We really appreciate it. We already have our Twitter rolling. Our Instagram is going to get there by the time the season's rolling around, and we really appreciate you guys doing that. And then also, if you don't want to catch us or if you don't want to watch us and you'd rather listen to us, you can do that on your favorite audio platform. I dropped down the Spotify link in the chat. If you don't listen to Spotify, you can listen to us on Apple Music, Amazon, wherever it may be. We really appreciate you guys doing that as well. And again, guys, please hit that like button and subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're trying to do. Let's talk about this next one. And should Texas schedule hard out of conference games? And I bring this up because, unfortunately, I was actually very excited for this game. Tennessee and Nebraska canceled their series. They will no longer be doing that, which I think is a disservice to college football fans in general. It sucks to see stuff like that happen, but we live in a new world now. And what is your opinion on that, Gerald? Should Texas schedule hard out of conference games?
I think there's a couple of reasons why I say yes. One, like, college football is all about marquee matchups, right? Like, in the spirit of college football, the helmet games, the seeing Texas and Ohio State playing week 1, right? Like those things are why college football is fun, why we have these historic matchups. The games that go down in the annals of college football history are generally between big brands playing each other, like Texas and Ohio State, which generally turn out to be hard games. I think that's like the soft, like touchy-feely reason why I think Texas should. But I think from a practical standpoint, you saw this year that the College Football Playoff Committee values big wins more than they take into account losses. Where when you're scheduling a hard or even not even a hard, but like a big brand out of conference game and you win it, that almost gives you a mulligan during conference play, where especially in the SEC, where it's going to be a grind and they're probably going to go to 9 games in the next couple of years. Like, you're going to have a week where it's just Vandy jumps up and gets you, or you lose to an Ole Miss team on the road, or whatever it might be, right? Tennessee, whoever it might be, right? There are going to be those times where you go out and you get bit because it's the SEC and it is what it is. And so having those hard out-of-conference games, those big out-of-conference games, and winning them is something that the College Football Playoff Committee has proven time and time again that they're going to reward, right? Alabama didn't have that this year, so they didn't get their mulligan, right? Then that means that they had a smaller margin. You have more margin to make it into the 12 or what eventually will probably be a 14 or 16 team field if you have a marquee non-conference game and you can get a win. So like from a practical standpoint, the selection committee and the criteria that they use seemingly weights big non-conference wins more than they do losses. So that's something to keep in your back pocket as well. So you can serve both masters there, right? Because college football is made for these kind of matchups and to bolster your resume, to get yourself the wins that you need on your schedule. To, again, the SEC is a hard conference to play in, and football is a physical, violent game. And there are games where you just don't have it, where you get hit and things don't go the way you want them to. So I think for about 1,001 reasons, right? Those two big ones, keep scheduling them.
Well, I mean, the first one, Chris Del Conte came out and said, like, we're Texas, we want to play the best teams possible. And I completely agree with that. Like, at some point, guys, these sports exist to serve fans. That's the only reason they exist. That is the first reason. If there are no fans, sports would not exist, period. So if you start alienating fans by saying, you know what, we're just going to have cream puff schedule, you're never going to get to see any teams or good teams come to Austin, or we get to go to Columbus, then it's not going to work out. And the sport will die eventually. And it's going to suck. Like, if you look at Texas's home schedule this year, it's not good at all. I think the best home game, luckily, is Texas A&M. After that, it's not that good. I think it's Arkansas. So 2 rivalry games saved the schedule. But other than that, it's a really, really bad home schedule. I think it's a pretty good schedule overall. I mean, you're going to Gainesville, you're going to Athens, you're going to Columbus. And I appreciate that Texas has scheduled hard. Like in the past, under Sark, we've gone to Alabama, we've gone to Arkansas, we've gone to Michigan. We're going to Ohio State. Ohio State will be coming here. Then Michigan will be coming here. And then Notre Dame will be coming here. And then we go to Notre Dame. That's it. It's going to be very interesting when that 2030 spot, what they do with that, because that is open. So that will tell me everything I need to know. I don't think they're going to cancel any big games. I don't think they're going to cancel the Ohio State game. They're not going to cancel the Michigan game. But could they stop scheduling them? I think that is a possibility. I would hate that if they do. I love when we play teams like classic matchups. Like, it's cool to see Notre Dame with those gold helmets versus Texas with their burnt orange. It's going to be really cool to see Texas with their icy whites versus Ohio State at the Horseshoe. That's going to be a hell of a football game to watch, just aesthetically, honestly. And then two big-time football programs. So I completely agree with you. I do not want to cancel these games. I think they're important for the sport as a whole. And I think they're just, like I said, it's an entertainment product at the end of the day, and they're very entertaining. And then also, guys, if we didn't schedule Alabama, we wouldn't have made the college football playoff a couple years ago when we lost to Washington. Florida State would have jumped us even with Georgia and Travis out. Like, if you put Sam Houston State instead of Alabama there and we win that football game and we're 11-1, guess what? Florida State's getting in, period. So that saved us from getting left out of the college football playoff that one year. You got to play the risk reward game. Sometimes there probably is a little bit too much risk scheduling a decent out of conference opponent, but you're also going to get rewarded from that more times than not, in my opinion.
100%. I think you're absolutely right. Because again, based on the selection criteria and what the selection committee has done for multiple years now, Like they are rewarding teams that play these difficult non-conference games. Even if you lose these non-conference games, they're rewarding you for the product they're rewarding you for. Because again, the College Football Playoff Committee is in it to make money too, right? So they want good TV products, and the good TV products on the front end of the season bear fruit in the end of the season for teams and for the College Football Playoff Committee. Because I saw Texas play Ohio State week 1. I'm going to tune in for their College Football Playoff first round game in Austin, right? Those things pay. And so again, for multiple reasons, it's a financial reason, it is a pageantry reason, what college football is made about, and ultimately a competitive reason as well. Like there's no reason to not play these games.
100%. I think Texas will continue to do it as long as CDC is here and as long as Sark is here. Sark it was funny. He got interviewed by Cowherd though. And he was like, yeah, you're playing Ohio State week 1. He's like, yeah, I don't know if I love that. So he may not, I don't know if it's the week 1 part or Ohio State. It may be more the week 1 because it usually is a week 2 or week 3 thing. So you can have a tune-up game before you go to Columbus maybe.
Yeah, week 1 is the big red flag. I prefer that week 2 for sure. Go place blow somebody off the field week 1 and then play your tough game week 2. That is my strong preference there.
Yeah, I agree with that part. This is usually it's not like this either. Like if this is a big game like that, it's usually a neutral site game. There's very few times a team starts out the regular season in a hostile environment that's like a non-rivalry type game. Like I know Miami went down to Florida, but that's a rivalry type game. Ohio State and Texas really isn't a rivalry.
I on that note, though, I remember it was probably 2 years ago, I think, when the Backyard Brawl was the first game of the season. And I was humming the entire week. I was like, we get college football on a Thursday night. It's a Backyard Brawl, and it's going to be insane. And the game turned out to not be that good, but it was still it's the hype, man. It is part of what makes college football fun.
No, 100%. That is the main thing that makes college football different from the NFL. That's why people like it. The pageantry,
100%.
The cool matchups, the atmospheres are just better. So I completely agree with that. And we're on the same page. We don't think Texas should not stop scheduling out of conference games that are hard. The next question, I saw this being floated, and I think it's an interesting question. Will Steve Sarkisian, or if there's someone else out there, who will be the next coach to win his first national championship? I think if you're looking at it, the names, contenders, Sark, Dan Lanning, James Franklin. I know people don't like to hear that, but he's in the running for sure. Brian Kelly, which is crazy to say, is still in the running. I think Marcus Freeman, obviously in the running. He was just in the national championship game. You have to put his name out there. So do you think Sark is number 1 on this list? If not, who would you have number 1?
It's tough. There's that group. I think you hit the nail on the head with the group of people. I think it's probably between if I had to gun in my head, I think probably Lanning or Sark, probably. Brian Kelly, I just don't LSU has all of the resources, but I just don't. There's something to be said about culture fit. It's probably overdone, but I also think Brian Kelly just doesn't work in Baton Rouge. I just don't think it's a good fit there. Notre Dame, again, it's going to be Lanning. It's going to be Lanning, Freeman, or Sark in my book, because the way that the programs are aligned, the way that the resources are aligned, the way that they're building those programs. Notre Dame was a decent quarterback away from probably being more competitive in that national championship picture. James Franklin. He's won some big games, right? People aren't giving him credit for winning college football playoff games. They're still giving him that. He doesn't win big games moniker, but he did, regardless of who he beat, winning the college football playoff is a big stinking deal. So I think they're probably in a position, especially this coming year, they've got a lot. It looks similar to not quite as high levels what Ohio State had, but when you have a lot of senior level, top level guys coming back for one more year, Drew Aller has another year to hopefully live up to his potential. I think Penn State is going to be somebody to have a lot of say in the national championship conversation this year. But I think if I had to put a fine point on it, I think Lanning's probably number 1, just with Papa Phil's money bags being floated around there. That's probably the way I would lean, but I'd probably be a close second for Sark.
Yeah, I do have Sark number 1. I just think I think he is the most consistent right now that I've seen. Obviously, he's had more time than Dan Lanning at this moment. I also don't know what Dan Lanning's going to look like without an experienced veteran quarterback. We've seen Bo Nix, who was basically in his 5th or 6th year in college. We've seen Dylan Gabriel, who's in his 6th or 7th year in college. What is he going to look like with Dante Moore, who honestly wasn't very good at UCLA, in my opinion, from what I watched? I mean, he got benched for Chase Garbers or whatever the heck his name is, but I just don't. I don't know yet about Dan Lanning. I think he's definitely going to win a national championship. I just don't know if I could put him over Sark. I will agree, though, with the James Franklin point. Like, to me, going into the season, I think there's two teams you can rank number one, like preseason wise, just with what's coming back in the talent. I think it's Penn State and I think it's Texas. Like, in my opinion, with the talent coming back, I think those should be the preseason one or two, whatever way you want to put them. Ohio State's probably in the running for like third or fourth. And Penn State this year, like if you're telling me for this year out of these coaches, who would I say? I would honestly probably say James Franklin, because the team is loaded. You have both your running backs back with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, I believe. And then you have Drew Aller coming back, who, man, there are some games I watch is like, damn, this guy's lights out. He could be like a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Then there's plays in games like Notre Dame. Why are you making that throw with 45 seconds left when you have the arm to just chuck it out of bounds and it wasn't even fourth down? It was like second down and you're making that play in your own territory. Why are you doing that? But you're going to have those guys back, plus a lot of defensive players back from that team. So I think this team can definitely like win the national championship. But I will say this, if he doesn't win it next year, I don't see him winning it, because this is his best chance next year.
Yeah, I was going to say this feels like the do it or never do it year for Penn State and James Franklin. Like, even like winning the conference, like if he can't win the conference this year, it's never going to happen for him, because Ohio State is not going to be as good as they were last year. Michigan still a work in progress. Indiana's not going to be as good. Like, I just don't know who their other threats are in the Big Ten. So like, if you can't get it done this year, I don't know when he's ever going to get it done.
Well, yeah, and I think I'm pretty positive they have Oregon coming to Happy Valley. Like, if you can't beat an Oregon team that's probably going to be the second worst of the Dan Lanning era at your own place, like you said, it's never going to happen. Like, this is it for him. To me, you have to at least win the conference. To me, I think you have to at least make the national championship game with this talent. I'm not going to say you have to win it, but you should get there. I'm not there with Texas yet. I think Texas, honestly, is building for next year. I think next year is the year to me where it's like they should win the national championship. I'm not there this year, but it is wide open. Like, if you look, there isn't a dominant team where like, you know what, that team is the odds-on favorite by a lot to win the national championship. They all have a lot of question marks, whereas last year it was pretty obvious to me. It was Ohio State, and then I thought Georgia, and then a little bit of everyone else. There is no team right up there like that right now.
And those years are the most fun to me, like when you don't know, and you don't have to let the national championship conversation drive your attention, right? So it's just like, let's go out, watch a cool football game, and it'll all sort itself out in the end. I'm excited for it.
No, 100%. So my top three would probably go Sark, Lanning, and then I'm going to throw James Franklin in there just because of this year. Again, this is kind of like what I said about Brian Kelly last year. I had Brian Kelly as the second best coach in the SEC, and then he fell down to like 9 or 8 for me, because guess what? You had Jaden Daniels, you fumbled that. You had Garrett Nussmeier, you kind of fumbled that last year. So it's like, how much leeway can I give you? Especially when, guess what? Every coach there has won a national championship in the past 20, 25 years. So, and you're the only one that hasn't, or even gotten to a college football playoff now that it's easier. That's a red flag for me. So I don't know even what to expect from him.
It is iffy at best. We'll say it like that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if they don't win 10 games this year, I think he gets fired. I think it's a lot like Tom Herman, where I don't know if Tom Herman's results warranted to him getting fired that fast as Texas, but when you have those results, plus you're an asshole, that kind of leads to, you know what? Your leash is going to be pretty short. And I think that's kind of with Brian Kelly.
Very short.
You're kind of an asshole and you're not winning. So guess what, buddy? You're gone. And that's kind of the opposite with Ed Orgeron. I think Ed Orgeron bought himself another year because he's kind of a likable guy. He's not an asshole. We'll see what happens with him. But those are my top three. Who are your top three? You said Lanning, Sark, and then who would you put third?
Lanning, Sark, and Franklin, I think, is probably where I would go with that.
Okay. That does it for that discussion as well. Please, again, hit that like button, subscribe down below. This has been the 43rd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Like and subscribe. And again, catch us on your favorite audio platform. I left the link to Spotify over there, so we really appreciate that in the comment section. Also, check us out on Twitter. Mine is right there. Matthew MS97, and this is Gerald's as well. You can check him out on Twitter and Blue Sky. Also, that is his Longhorn Pod, which he does with his friend. You can find that anywhere on any audio platform. So we really appreciate you guys checking that out. Again, we will be here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We really appreciate you guys being here. This has been the 43rd edition of Texas Longhorns Live. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.